Welcome along to the Maroon and White Pod. First of all, Happy New Year to all our listeners who've tuned into the podcast. We have a bumper show this evening. In part one of the show, I'm now joined by Donnchadh Boyle of the Irish Independent to look back on Galway's victory over Kildare in a challenge match on Saturday in Newbridge. Galway won out 218 to 17 points in the end, and we're going to get Donnchadh's view on the new rules and how Galway are looking, but still very early in the year. Donica, first of all, as a match with the new rules and everything, what did you make of Galway and Kildare as a contest?
I think it was I think there was a slight air of trepidation in the air. There was excitement, but I think there was a little bit of trepidation as well because I was talking to somebody earlier, and I suppose we've all bemoaned the state of football and what it had turned into, and the long periods of keep ball, and we all uniformly it wasn't what we wanted to see in our game. And over the last few months, some radical steps have been taken and it was voted in. And then all of a sudden, last Saturday night, we had to live with the consequence of the decision. This was the brave new world in terms of Gaelic football. So I think there was a little bit of anxiety around that. Certainly for me, I was I'd be very much in the camp that I accepted change was needed. But what would the change actually look like when it came to pass? So it was an unusual sort of night in that I suppose we've all grown up with Gaelic football and it's second nature to us all. And parts of the game were certainly counterintuitive. There were moments where David Goff rightly would call a foul on one of the new enhancements, and there would be a split second or more of sort of confusion. And that went from you'd see fellas on the line, they'd be looking at each other trying to figure out what that was. You'd hear the murmurs from the crowd, from people trying to say, what's he doing here? What's going on? Because they didn't fully understand it. And in the press box as well, it was all the same. Everyone's checking with each other what the regulation was. Are we all reading that the same way? So there was a lot of, for the first time, I suppose, for probably ever for a lot of people, weren't actually sure of the rules of the game. And that brought a very strange dynamic to it. In terms of the contest, it was a nice sort of opener as to what the game will look like. I don't think you could draw any hard and fast conclusions in terms of what works for Gaelic football and what doesn't work for Gaelic football, or even how Kildare or Galway are shaping up. But it was certainly a decent opening gambit in terms of the new game.
Was it very different for you or similar enough?
It was both at the same time. I recorded the Independence podcast earlier today, and we were just talking, and I made the same point. The game actually looks the same when a team is attacking or building up and they're being met with bodies around the 45 or the end of the edge of the arc, we'll call it now, and there's that sort of U-shape defensive shape that teams use to try and push attacking teams wide. And so in that sense, it looked very similar to what we were used to last year. It was just less bodies in the same part of the field. So it looked very similar. The big changes were, I think, on the night, I think those 4 goalkeepers used. I don't have an actual number for this, but my guess would be around half a dozen times between the 4 goalkeepers who used, you saw them going up the field, in or around that. So it was far less prevalent in the last year. I'm going to use the term old game. That's probably not what the FFC want you to say, but the old game, you could be certain that in a lot of teams, your goalkeeper will be well up the pitch. That doesn't happen now because the risk and the reward has changed. That dynamic has switched. And so if you're a goalkeeper and you go forward and you can't take the ball until you're in the opposition's half, if the ball gets turned over, there's now 3 attackers behind you. And that's a very, I think Brian Flanagan said it afterwards, that's a frightening prospect for a goalkeeper. So you have to pick and choose your moments to go forward now, even though it does create a 12v11 scenario, which is advantageous, but it's still a lot of risk. The kick out has changed, obviously. Kick out has to go past the arc. That means the little dink out to the corner back and the long, slow build-up periods of play. That has kind of been eradicated to some sense, to a large degree, I would say. And I'm sure we'll come on to it, but the game was effectively decided by Paul Conroy. And Paul Conroy had 4 shots on goal, 4 of them from outside the arc. Those 4 shots were worth 8 points, which goes back to the counterintuitive thing I was talking about. And despite being on the pitch for maybe 20 minutes, he finished the game as top scorer. So there was that whole dynamic there about the value of 2 points, at those 2 point shots. and how that contrasts against the goal, which is still worth 3 points. But if you have someone like Paul Conroy in your team, the likelihood of getting a 2-pointer is far greater than the likelihood of getting a goal. So how ambitious are you going to be in terms of trying to score goals? I know Galway got 2 in the night, but it just the value of a goal has been sort of in a roundabout way devalued by the 2-point score. So it's just an interesting dynamic down. That was a very obvious one on paper from the start, but I think you saw it the other night that like teams can now win the game from 40 metres out. You used to have to get a goal to win the game, but if you have someone like Paul Conroy, you can win the game from outside the arc, which is it does shift the dial a little bit.
Just from that 12v11, obviously, if the keeper going forward, and now the new rule of each team having to keep 3 attackers up and have the 3 defenders back there as well. On the 12v11 with the keeper, a lot of negativity in the last few days seems to be coming out about this. A lot of people are moaning that you're still going to have keepers coming up and everything. How do you see this 12v11 playing out throughout the year?
Well, it goes back to the risk reward thing you're talking about, and if your goalkeeper is coming up, you want to be very certain that he can make a positive contribution to the game. So he needs to be very comfortable in possession, and if he's coming up, he probably also needs to be a shooting option. So in the dynamic, the goalkeeper as it was up until the end of 2024, that demanded a very certain skill set, and chief among them was probably getting away your dinky little kick out, getting it away and getting away quick, picking out a man. That has been changed, or not eradicated, but it's certainly been that skill. The requirement of that skill is not what it was now, because the kick out has to go a certain distance. So now you're looking at where does my goalkeeper contribute, and you do ask the question. And this was put to me by Stephen Poacher, who's now the Leitrim manager, but would have been well-known coach in these circles. He says, do you go for an outfield profile player in goals? Because you can argue now that there's much value in the ball going 60, 70 metres up the field, because he can't go short and build it up. And if he's good enough to join the play and contribute to the attack, maybe that's where the true value of a goalkeeper lies. So, I think if you're bringing your goalkeeper out now, you need to be very, very convinced that he can contribute in a positive way. If the ball gets turned over, it's pretty much, there's a good chance it's going to be walked into the net with your goalkeeper caught upfield, because now there's 3 attackers and 3 forwards behind you. So all it takes is one good kick pass into space, and your 3 attackers, it's a drill like we've all done in training. Your 3 attackers should be beating your 3 backs when they have possession of the ball. So I know what people are saying, and it'll be interesting to see how coaches go about it, but there's a huge risk factor there, and I'm just wondering how many teams, one, will be prepared to take on the risk of sending a goalkeeper forward, and 2, how many teams actually have a goalkeeper who can contribute positively. First person we're talking about is Niall Morgan, who's obviously a brilliant outfielder with his club. Rory Beggan, who's a brilliant kicker of the ball, long range points. So you can argue that they would do it, but not everyone has a Niall Morgan or a Rory Beggan. So finding that player it would be difficult. So it'll be very interesting to see how counties do that as the league and the championship progresses.
Overall, what did you make of Galway on Saturday night?
I think I was saying the off air there, January at the best of time, it's difficult, and you wouldn't be pinning your mast to anything you see. And that goes for Galway and Kildare. Kildare were, could you call them half strength? Maybe roughly in or around that. They have a handful of first teamers starting, and then loads of other fellows who will be putting their hands up. It did strike me. I'm a massive fan of Killian McDade. It did strike me. Poor Joyce said this afterwards. The 5, 7, 10, and 12 channels, are going to do so much work transitioning the ball in this new game. They're going to be up and down the pitch. And with McDade's engine and his physicality and his skill set, because he can kick points and he can score goals, he looks tailor-made for it in some ways. There's that sort of he boomed forward a kick, but did he get a point later on? Was it him? Yeah, in the first half, he had a point. I'm here for a point in the first half. And it's just like that, coming on to the ball like a train, and having the presence of mind to kick a point at speed and on the run as well. So the likes of him looks well for. Paul Conroy was, even by his own standards, that was 4 remarkable points. I know he's well known for it, but when that scoring arc was introduced, Conway was probably the first name that came to mind. People would say, like, who will that suit? And maybe along with Rian O'Neill and Armagh, they were probably in the game at the moment. They're two of the first names that come to your mind who would benefit from that. So that was quite remarkable. But like, it's very, very, very early days. Like, you know, I was reading back before we did the match report the other night. I was reading back over Paul Joyce's quotes, you know, about the All Ireland final last year, and he'd one fairly stark one saying, "Look, we'll be thinking about it till we take our last breaths." So I think that's the psychological recovery for Galway might be as much as anything. Like, there's no doubt they're in the shake-up. There's no doubt they're in the mix. I think Armagh's win last year will embolden a lot of counties into thinking, well, you know what I mean, we can't be that far away. And, you know, there's a handful, there's probably five, you throw blanket over 5, 6, 7 teams, all of whom you could argue would beat each other. Galway are right in there. Like, I suppose it's not really a matter of talent for Galway. They probably need to get everyone fit. And again, Pádraig Joyce touching this in his post-match. I covered Galway Monaghan last year in the league. And I think he might have had something like 17 players injured to one way or another. And they won that day, and they weren't the only county, but just if you can get everyone fit and the key players fit. I have a piece with Shane Walsh in the Irish Independent tomorrow, which is, wasn't it, Monday night we're talking, so Tuesday's editions. And just he was talking about how, you know, it was great to get the break and all that. And I was running through what his schedule has been. So if you go back to that 22 All-Ireland final, wasn't it, that Galway lost to Kerry? So Walsh was one of the great All-Ireland final performances. Probably not talked about enough because Galway lost the game, but like genuinely one of the great All-Ireland final performances. Through that into an All-Ireland final with Crokes, onto Galway, an All-Ireland semi-final with Crokes, and then onto Galway and an All-Ireland final again. And as he said himself, like, you know, he's basically been bandaged up and he's been patched up. So like, Galway fully fit Shane Walsh, Galway fully fit Damien Comer, and it's almost a cliche at this stage, but you do, you know, wonder what they could do if they had everyone fit at all times. And you might be better able to answer this, but again, on our podcast today, I asked the question, like, over the last few years, how many times have Damien Comer and Shane Walsh been fully fit at the same time? Like,
yeah, or even clicked together, like.
Yeah, like, so you might, like, you see Comer some days and he's just unstoppable, like, he's unplayable, and Walsh can do absolute things that most players can only dream of. Like, he's phenomenal talent. But over the last few years, how many times have those, and maybe only the Galway S&C or the Galway physios or Pádraig Joyce could tell you this, how many times have they both been fully fit? So that's a huge question mark for Galway, because like, it's certainly not a question of talent or ability or anything like that. It's probably getting everyone fit, and I suppose adapting to the new rules. Like, I know, like, Cian O'Neill was very influential by all accounts in that setup, so it'll be interesting to see how they adapt after him as well. But these new rules are an asterisk and a variable for everyone. So there will be people who will adapt to it and teams who will adapt to it really well and really fast, and there will be teams who won't. And on that one, only time will tell. And that's the asterisk over everything we're saying here. We just don't know who this game will suit and who it won't.
Obviously, you mentioned there you don't know who will suit, but even listening to your or reading your piece after with Pádraig Joyce and talking about how he likes this kind of game now, more kicking in the game, and it's what probably teams have been crying out for. In that sense, do you think it will eventually begin to suit a team like Galway?
I go around the houses on this one. So an awful lot of the new rules were road tested in a regional competition in Meath. All of them, I think, pretty much, with the exception of the 40-metre scoring arc. So there's regional competition in Meath where basically the junior and intermediate clubs were pushed together into 8 regional teams, and they played off against each other. And the idea is that you find unearthed new talent, but probably at its, you know, the likelihood is that it maybe drive standards a little bit at club level because fellas want to get on this regional team because it's kind of representative football. Anyway, my local team on Tushkart, they got to the final, and my brother was the manager of the team, so I watched an awful lot of games. And the thing that stood out to me was that now this is club level and a representative football, but what stood out to me was that the days of the knacky inside forward are back. So if you're talented inside forward, and you can create situations where to get one-on-one, even the best back in the world is going to struggle against the forward getting good ball one-on-one. So that's a bit of a throwback. And certainly, if you look at the profile of Galway's footballers, you would think that one-on-one situation will suit them all. The flip side of that is that if your good forwards are going to be left one-on-one, it means your defenders are going to be left one-on-one too. So how many counties have 2 and 3 good man markers who are going to be comfortable in 20 yards of space in any direction? And I think that's going to be huge. But those individual battles now are going to have a huge bearing on the game. And like we had that last year, we had Mick Fitzsimons tagging whoever, be it Comer or Walsh, and we had Chrissy McCaig taking, say, Paddy McBrearty in Ulster final. And that was there. There was a one-on-one duel, but it was only a one-on-one duel insofar as, the whole area was congested with traffic and bodies as well. So, but now the opportunity will arise for those fellas, two attackers, to be taking on defenders one-on-one in the truest, rawest form of the thing. So that I think will be a significant factor. Like, if you're looking at Kerry, like you would say that on what we've seen in the league or of the rules so far, the potential for David Clifford to make hay under these new regulations looks to be massive. At this early stage, it looks to be huge. And you could make the same case for Galway's talented inside forwards, which they undoubtedly have.
On the game overall, I was just following it on Twitter now myself. I wasn't actually up with the game, but early on, Galway seemed to be pulled a few times for not keeping the 3 up.
Yeah. And Kildare never were. And this is what I'm saying about adapting to the game. So Galway won. They won the game with a bit to spare. I think it's fair to say. Paul Conroy kind of sorted that, and the goal, the second half goal, Tom O'Callaghan's goal. Those were the moments that really separated the game. Galway got pulled 3 times in the space of maybe 10 minutes for not having 3 up. And they were 30-metre frees, tap over frees for Alex Byrne from Kildare. So while and Joyce was talking about it afterwards, he says, well, look, it's just a matter of getting used to it. He says, and if you're struggling, he says, and if you're in doubt, he says, just leave 4 up. Like, I'm sure you've spoken to him after the game. He's quite straight and, blunt, and, just tells it like it is a lot of the time. So he said, look, if you're struggling with 3, leave 4, and, there won't be any errors then. So that was one of his solutions to it. But the other side of the coin was that they got 4 2-pointers, 5 actually, I think, in total. Kildare didn't get 1. They didn't even have a shot, according to my records, a 2-point shot. So everyone's going to struggle with the new things in a different way, depending on the profile of your team. So Galway's thing was it's only a concentration piece. Like it's eminently fixable. I think you do that. You do it 3 times in about 10 minutes. I'd be surprised if they're playing in-house games now. I'd say the first fella who does it in the next in-house game now, I think he'd be in for the hairdryer treatment. So I think players will learn very quickly on this. But there is, as I said in the piece in the Sunday Independent, like, I think at this stage, counties and players and managers and referees and supporters and journalists, media and everything, you just need reps. You need to see the thing to where it becomes second nature, where you can have a half-second glance and you see, well, there is 3 up, or there isn't 3 up, or you can have a half-second glance and you're confident that the shot was from outside the arc and therefore would be worth 2 points. But there will be a teething process for this, I think. And I think Paul Joyce and Brian Flanagan said it after the game on Saturday night. Need a little bit of patience is required here from all sides.
On the makeup of the Galway 15, it wasn't exactly sprinkled with many new faces really across the 15. Matthew Thompson, probably the only notable one really, a corner forward. Sam O'Neill as well, he made his debut at centre half forward. James McLaughlin has obviously been involved previously. On those couple of, I suppose, new players getting their breakthrough on Saturday night, did they impress you?
It's very hard to say. Like, I suppose you see, I went to Saturday night's game looking at the rules as such, as opposed to maybe an eye on, who the up and coming players. It was really to see how the thing would be interpreted by players and managers and coaches. That's really what it was. One thing, like I mentioned, the 5, 7, 10 and 12 channels. So I suppose the one thing that Sean Kelly seemed to play in around wing back for a lot of it. In this, given he's so good at so many things, you're just wondering, like, where do you put him? So do you leave him on one of those man marking jobs, which he's well able to do? He's brilliant at carrying the ball and breaking the line, transitioning the ball. So do you leave him there? So that's just an interesting thing, is where to put him. So that was one of the things that stood out to me. I'm not sure, like, it's not an original question, I suppose, when it comes to Galway football, but where is Sean Kelly's best position? But it's at least as pertinent now under these new rules as it was 12 months ago and 24 months ago. But other than that, no, as I said, the thing that I really like this game for Killian McDade. I think he's a fantastic footballer. I think he's got all the tools in any setting, but I think this game in particular could be suited to the likes of him, because his running power is extraordinary. And a lot of fellas have hard running power, but not everyone has the football he has. So I think if he can stay fit, another guy, I mentioned Comer and Walsh earlier, but another fella, if he can stay fully fit, get the run of games that got him into that, was at 22, he was absolutely magnificent. If he can get back to that level of form, like Galway have a hell of a player in the hands.
And was Matthew Tierney staying in on the edge of the square for most of Saturday, or was he drifting?
Tierney actually, let me just check my notes on this. I'm open to correction on this, but I'm pretty certain he took the first note I have, Tierney in for the throw up. So he actually stood in for the throw up, and then he seemed to move inside most of all. But there will be a huge rotation piece there, because the work required at that middle third is massive. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Kildare did it with Kevin Feely early on. Kevin Feely's a brilliant fielder of the ball, excellent midfielder, but also really good full forward, target man type player. And I remember looking up after maybe 15 minutes, and he had been rotated in, because the up and down nature of the game is such that fellas are going to need breathers at some stage. So Tierney actually took the are we still calling it a throw in? We'll call it a throw in. Tierney actually was in midfield for the throw in. So that was literally the first note I made on the night, and I thought that was interesting. But maybe that's just because he's tall and rangy and could potentially win the ball against most people. Maybe it's a good spring or something. But it seemed to be inside a lot. But there will be huge rotation in that area. There's no way. I don't think there'll be very few people who will be left inside the opposition half for the full 70 odd minutes. I think that'll be the preserve of a very few.
You obviously mentioned Paul Conroy at the onset, and even looking back through the various reports, you see 4 2-pointers. You see he only entered the fray in the second half. A lot of Galway fans probably surprised to see him too on Saturday night, but when you consider that 4 2-pointers now, and he finished him with a score like 8 points, you're nearly just laughing reading it.
Yeah. He hadn't trained with Galway. Poor choice told us after. Hadn't trained, he's doing a little bit in his own, but he said he wanted to come along tonight and get the reps. So he turns up, comes off the bench. Presumably, I don't know when St James was beaten in county football, but presumably hasn't played much since then. So he's be looking at 2 or 3 months without nothing. And the first 4 kicks of the ball he gets, he splits the posts. So it's pretty remarkable. But like, he put down an extraordinary year last year and ended up with his Footballer of the Year award. So one of those fellas who seems to be getting better. And we've mentioned the injuries a little bit. He's barred that leg break against Kerry a couple of years ago. He's an extraordinary run, and seems to be, as I say, seems to be getting better with age, which is sort of Benjamin Button stuff.
With all these challenge matches happening at the minute, there is this question now: why did we really get rid of the pre-season competitions when you're seeing all these various challenge matches, and even some counties are opening them up to the public now as well?
Yeah, it's one I didn't really understand. I understand the idea is to remove some of the pressure on players, and that's fine. But I think teams were allowed to return to training officially on December 9th. I'm not sure there was a county or country that hadn't trained before that point, and that I'm like Brian McAvoy, the Ulster Council Secretary, made comments last week to that effect as well. He said, like, there was, in terms of taking pressure off players and not training, most counties, it appears, anecdotally, were back training long before the official deadline was back. So, to remove the pre-season competitions in a bid to ease the pressure, it just didn't really stack up, because counties were always going to organise their own challenge games, and they were certainly going to organise their own challenge games when they had these new rules to get used to. So now, interestingly enough, to say, Galway are going in-house from now, between now and they play Armagh and Lights and Salt Hill at the end of the month. That's the Portuguese told us that's the last public game they'll have. Kildare will probably have one more, potentially against Down. Um, but loads of counties will have it. So yeah, it didn't really logically it wasn't really there because players were always going to counties were always going to go and look for games. And what happened on Saturday night was Kildare advertised that game as a fundraiser for the senior football team. So they raised a nice few pound. I don't know how many people was at it, but it was €15 for an adult ticket. So they got a few quid together for that. Previously, that money would have went to the Leinster Council. Part of what the Leinster Council certainly used to do with their O'Byrne Cup money and their pre-season competition money went to a former player hardship fund. I remember being at a launch of those things. So that all that's happened here is that the money has been redirected. So that's not a criticism. That's just one of the offshoots of what we're doing here. So we've taken out the O'Byrne Cup and the McKenna Cups and all those things, and we've just replaced it with a random set of challenge games. So did we really gain anything? Not really. No, I don't really see the benefit in not having them. If there was a thing like no contact November, which the GPA are talking about, and that was going to be abided by everyone, then you could see the logic for it. But like for the longest time, the GA has been flouting. GA clubs and counties have been flouting their own rules, particularly around training. We couldn't enforce it during COVID when there was a global pandemic. Why do we think we'd be able to enforce it now? And the appetite's just not there. Like a lot of times, clubs and counties in this instance, counties just want to get back, and maybe they have a new manager, or if you're a young fella and you get called into the panel for the first time, your ability to say no is small, like because you got your chance. The thing you've worked for all your life, you get your chance and you go in for it. So and you'll say yes. You won't say no. Listen, actually, you know what the GA rule says? I'm not allowed to train until December 9th. I'll pass. I'll see you on the 10th. The world doesn't work like that. So it's a lovely notional thing, but in real terms, it just doesn't make much sense. Certainly to me.
That's all we do time for in part one of the show, and we'll have James Ó Flatharta on camera, goalkeeper, next in part two of the show with Donnchadh Boyle. Thanks very much for coming on to the podcast.
Good man, Paul. Thank you.
Now on part two of the show of the Maroon and White Pod, I'm joined by James Ó Flatharta of An Cheathrú Rua. James popped up with some crucial scores yesterday, and the goalkeeper, of course, making some crucial saves as well as An Cheathrú Rua progressed into the All-Ireland Junior Final. Has it started to sink in yet, James?
To be honest, I don't think it really has. We're kind of blessed this year that we're on a very good winning streak, and winning is becoming a habit now, and everything like that. It just feels like we won another game, but it definitely doesn't feel like we've achieved the ultimate goal, and we get to live out a dream and go to Crow Park. So it might take a few days now. Body's a bit stiff and sore, and maybe after a bit of recovery and stuff like that, that it might sink in properly. But yeah, it hasn't fully sank in yet.
Safe to say, I'd say yesterday's game with Ballinagare of Offaly probably the toughest game you played all year.
Yeah, yeah, they were a ferocious side. That and the Kildare match probably, they both went down to the wire. Um, Kildare were a very, very good side, but I think Ballinagare were very, very good. Like, any team that has multiple under 20 county players playing for them, the likes of Tynan and O'Mara coming off and wanting to be on that Offaly senior panel as well, is always going to be a good club team. If you have a few lads in with the county, it's always going to be a very, very good team, and they showed that on the day. Like it came down. It was a game of inches. So they were very good, very young, very fast, very fit. I was very, very impressed with them, but we did our homework on them, and I think we did nullify their threats very well. But and that goes down to management and our analysis as well. But no, definitely, 100%. They were by far they were neck and neck with Kildare in the games themselves. But yeah, the team was definitely the best team we faced.
It's safe to say you're a busy man yesterday, James. Some crucial saves that you made yesterday, and then coming up kicking 245s as well.
Yeah, kept busy. It's kind of how I like to be, but plenty of help was I was surrounded with plenty of help as well. Like the backs, I thought did a phenomenal job. They limited Ballinagary's attacking threats, like the few players that like Gallagher as well. I think he scored 2 or 3 points, but I think our fullback Irlo Crocker did very very well on very very good on him. And they didn't really ever have many clear-cut goal chances. I was helped out a lot with the O'Brien brothers as well, the Twin Towers there coming back on the line, helped me out with, any free that was dropping short and a few that was probably going to go over if there was anyone else back in the line, but they were able to field them as well. So plenty of help. I think there was one or two maybe dangerous shots that they were in on goal, but we, as a team, we, nullified that. So no, my performance is just a credit to the backs. The less I have to do and the better I look is just because the backs are playing very well. If the backs aren't playing well, I don't play well. So no, it's a credit to them really. Like that's kind of how everything happened.
The 45 when you're trailing, is there nerves at all coming up?
Um, weirdly enough, I think I was more nervous with the first one. Then I took the first one and it sailed over, and I was pretty happy with that. The ground on the 45 line there on the right hand side of the goal in the first half was perfect. I took the second one then on the left hand side, and I'm going to say it was a bit muddy and patchy. It's hard to get good ground there to get good footing, and there was a bit of commotion with the footballs as well. I thought all the Ballinagare footballs were flat, so I was kind of I was on the lookout for a Carrow football. So thankfully the last one there was a Carrow football. I placed it. The ground was looking good. All I wanted was a good connection, and I was praying that it was going to go over, and it sailed over, and I was delighted with it. But yeah, weirdly enough, there was nothing really going through my head when I was running up for that last kick. I was up there fairly quick. I was like my body knew it was going to happen. So, yeah, it was the nerves weren't there while I was kicking it, but geez, after I kicked it, I don't know why I was felt nervous then. I was that last 2 minutes, I think, after Pody scored, I think that's when nerves were really, really in and really deep when they were on the attack and they had a few opportunities to get an equaliser themselves.
On the game as a whole, like he started like a house on fire and looked really good early on. Then they get their period of dominance, and then he somehow managed to go in ahead 6-5 at the break. And then for that third quarter, and even when there's 5 minutes left, it looks as if they're going to hang on. But like credit to you, he just kept plugging away.
Yeah, look, by no means is that the best football we've ever played. It's probably, to be honest, one of our worst games this year. I thought that second half we were fairly poor. Our handling was off. I think we might have gifted them a few points, like with handling errors and taking maybe steps, or just being careless with the ball. And we were going into tackles, and we should have learned really from the first half that the referee was happy to get, to make it a physical game, which was enjoyable for us, and we should have really thrived because we are a physical team. But yeah, we were just doing careless mistakes, and I think it was one of the worst half of football that we've played this year. But that again is a sign of a good team if we can win, while not playing at our best. And but yeah, we were happy enough in that last kind of third of the game that we kind of dragged it out of the bag really, like in probably the substitution, bringing Paddy on. Fergal makes a good darting run down the right hand side, puts the ball across. Paddy was unlucky, but he got a touch, hit the crossbar, fell to the right man in Matthew O'Donnell, and then he took it away. So that was a deciding factor there that kind of gave us a bit of a boost. And then, at the end when it's only 1 point, like you only need one chance, and with how they were set up defensively, we were kind of hoping for maybe a free or a 45, just a place kick maybe just to get that equalizer, because it was very tough to run through them. And then on their kick out, then we got the ball, and that's how we got the winner. So it was kind of yeah, it was good. The substitution helped us very well. But yeah, I probably as a team we weren't really happy with our performance, but we're delighted with the result, and that's kind of the main thing.
And I presume Paulie didn't have to put his hand in his pocket last night.
Not many of us did know, in fairness. So yeah, the local pubs and everything, in fairness, have been good to us over the last while. Winning Connacht and stuff like they throw out a few drinks like so. No, it's a credit to them. When Kishton, which is owned by the O'Shea's family there, that's kind of the local there, and we tend to go there a lot. And they've been very very good for it this year. And then Unrail, then back the road as well. They've also like prepared the two of them have prepared food for us on different occasions and threw a few drinks our way as a celebratory gesture like.
What were the scenes like just getting back to Carrow last night to realise you're in an All Ireland final?
It was good. It was it's great. Like to be honest, on the pitch it was very very good because everyone's coming up to you. A lot of if we had a lot of supporters down there. We probably outnumbered Ballinagare heavily on the supporters front. There's a few buses from Carrow went there as well. Like so that was very good. And then they all headed back. A few of them even met us in Montbellieu when we were having food on the way home as well. So they had a few points with us there, and the whole supporters crew. Then we were in the kitchen when we landed back, and it was just lovely. Like it was nice, wholesome. Nice to do something for the parish and put a good buzz around the parish as well. Like we actually all sat down and we threw on the game again, and we all sat down in the pub and watched it. So it was when you know what's happening, you can make a laugh and a joke out of it. So it was nice. It was good fun then with the players, the team, the management, but also the supporters as well, and the parish itself is just very very good, very good, very good night in total.
When people look at Carrow, James, they're wondering how you got things back on track because you went from senior to junior in the space of 2 years, and now you're in an All Ireland junior final in Croke Park. What's happened to get things back on track?
Um, Honestly, I'd say um, probably the talent that's coming through from the younger players. That's probably really spearheaded us getting back on track. There was a few years there. There was actually just no players coming through. No players that wanted to play at the highest level for Carrow, and we were kind of doom and gloom there. I even know the year I had under 21, like we reached the county final against Corofin, and when we look at the two teams, there's actually only two or three of us from the Carrow team still playing. But then you look at the Corofin team that bet us in that county final, and they have eight or nine playing, and another six that represented Galway. Like so, it's kind of chalk and cheese with the teams that were there that day. We lost some serious footballers as well to immigration. But yeah, it's a credit now to the young lads. Like it's crazy. Like when we go over a few points and they're saying they have school the next day, that's kind of the surreal thing. Like they were all saying, "Oh, back to school today," and I was like, "Oh, Jesus, make me feel old myself." Like, but no, yeah, it's the talent that's coming through, and they're phenomenal players. And you saw yesterday, like the injection of youth there, but you also need to balance that with experience and people to get you back on track there with a lot of experience, like the O'Briens in midfield, like Euro Crocker, players that have played senior for years. And yeah, it's a good balance, but definitely I'd say the biggest factor is the youth that's come through.
And what has Manus brought then?
I'd say it's kind of an outside voice. We didn't have an outside manager now for I'd say 15 plus years, maybe. It's been a long time since we actually put our hand in our pocket for a manager, and that's a credit to every manager that's come in and managed us. They're all from Carrow, and their heart is in the team and everything, and they did a fantastic job. Like the manager that was there, Paul Joseph O'Donnell, he was there for 2 years. The 2 years we got relegated, but that's no fault on him. He was, it was a limited squad, and we were probably trying to stay up and seeing it with the scrape of our teeth. And then when you're on that downward spiral, it's hard to turn back, and that's just kind of where we were intermediate. We didn't have the rubber green intermediate and everything like that. So when we were down in junior, we were like, might as well just change everything up, and that's what Mullins brings in. He's been a fantastic manager. I think he's a good man manager. Especially towards me. I'm a goalkeeper. I'm learning from him. He's a goalkeeper. Um, Something we work on are kickouts a lot, so we're getting a lot of primary possession. And as well, like tactically, I think it's very, very good. We do these sessions before every big match. We look at the threats the other team have, but we also look at our strengths and how we can cause chaos and damage the other team. And I think that's been very, very good. And the trainings are very, very good. Like you're doing fitness without even knowing you're doing fitness. Like so, it's the fittest I think our team's ever been. Yeah. So I think he's just brought a bit of kind of professionalism as well in, and it's going very well. And I'm extremely happy with how the year went, and the management have been fantastic. And it's not just Monas, he has good lads as well from Carrow with him. Kieran Scarsa Hokulan, years of playing senior, Proy Puir as well. He was on that 1996 panel. Kieran Feature McDonagh, years of playing senior, and Shane Sullivan as well. They've all played senior. They've all been there, done that. They know what they're talking about. And yeah, it's just a great group of management that we have.
So the All-Ireland final opponents, that semi-final still to be played between Kilmary and Muff. Kilmary, Cork, obviously there, and Muff at Donegal. It's interesting in one sense because it is quite a build-up now to the All-Ireland final, even when you consider it. The semi-final obviously takes place next weekend, and then you're not out until January 25th. How will that build-up look for the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think we're uh, start to start things off. I think we're focusing on recovery. So I think the lads are going in. I think tomorrow to Leisureland or something. I'm gonna be heading back up to Dublin now. I work up in Dublin, so I'll have to do my own recovery and stuff up there. But yeah, we're focusing on recovery, kind of taking it very handy this week. Trying to get injuries, sorted. We had a lot of knocks, like players played through pain there yesterday. So it's a credit to them as well. So the 3 weeks would actually benefit us. Strangely enough, going into yesterday, I didn't think it would be the worst thing in the world if it was put back a week because we'd have more time to kind of recoup and get the injuries right. But yeah, this week is kind of a relaxed one, but it's focused on recovery. And then we'll start up again Saturday, then ramping up the training and tactically try and be aware. We'll probably watch as well the other semi final, and then we'll see who we'll face on the day, and then we'll be doing tactical work on them as well. And we're always kind of working on the fundamentals as well. At every train, kickouts, opposition kickouts, attacking play, defending play. Like it'll be more or less the same in training, but the intensity will stay the same as well. But we'll be doing a lot more recovery, just trying to get the body right, and as well we'll be setting up tactically to see how we can go out and bring this All Ireland back west of the Shannon.
It's a huge occasion to look forward to, isn't it? Getting with your club, even here, even for a Gaeltacht club in Galway to get to Croke Park, like there's not many clubs that have got there.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I probably said it jokingly at the start of the year that we could make an All Ireland final. I never really thought of it outside of probably that one time I said it, but yeah, it's a great achievement. Croke Park is the mecca of every GA person. Like we know, like all the stories that come from there. When you go to training, the first ever training you go to, and you're wearing your club colours or your county colours down training, you dream of playing in Croke Park on big days. And I think it's a bit special to do with your club. Um, Not many people get to do that. And it doesn't really matter what grade it is, you're still going out there with your club, with the lads you grew up with the chance to be All Ireland champions. So it's going to be very, very special. Like, I know I did a few interviews there after the match yesterday, and I was getting kind of emotional even thinking about, running out in front of that Hogan stand. That's going to be epic. And that's kind of the reason that it hasn't sank in yet, that, this lifelong dream is going to become a reality in a few short weeks, and it's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely, and an occasion for you really to look forward to. James, thanks very much for coming on to the podcast, and the very best of luck and enjoy the next few weeks.
Thanks, man.